coming up on 5 Minute News. Ohio police set dog on black man during traffic stop. Netanyahu recovering from heart surgery as protests continue ahead of judiciary vote. And 50% of stolen territory recaptured by Ukraine. It's Monday, July 24. I'm Anthony Davis. Police in Ohio unleashed a canine on a black man who had exited his vehicle with his hands raised after a traffic stop earlier this month, according to officials. The incident unfolded on July 4 after law enforcement officers engaged in the lengthy pursuit of a semi-tractor trailer driven by 23-year-old Judarius Rose. The vehicle was missing a mud flap and had failed to stop for an inspection, a report from the Ohio State Highway Patrol said. It came to a halt on a state highway about 40 miles south of Columbus after authorities deployed tire deflation devices known as stop sticks for a second time. In the video provided by the Highway Patrol, Rose is seen standing in front of the vehicle with his hands raised as law enforcement officials order him to get on the ground. Moments later, an officer with the Circleville Police Department unleashed a police dog on Rose, even though a state trooper told the local officer not to release the dog. The video shows the dog running towards Rose, now on his knees, and the video appears to show the canine biting and pulling the driver. Rose screams loudly and can be heard saying, "Please get it off." Circleville Public Safety Director Douglas Deboard told local media the city is currently reviewing the incident involving the police canine unit. The Highway Patrol said the driver was immediately provided first aid and emergency medical personnel were contacted to assist. Rose was subsequently taken into custody, OSHP said, adding the case remains under investigation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was recovering in a hospital on Sunday after an emergency heart procedure, as tens of thousands of supporters and opponents of his government's judicial overhaul plan held rival rallies ahead of a key vote. With the country ensnared in its worst domestic crisis in decades, President Isaac Herzog on Sunday met Netanyahu in the hospital, treating him in hope of closing the rift between the religious nationalist ruling coalition and opposition parties. The Knesset, where Netanyahu wields a comfortable majority, is due today to hold final readings of a bill limiting Supreme Court powers to overrule some government decisions. It would be the first reform written into law of a package critics fear aims to curb judicial independence, but which Netanyahu, who is on trial on corruption charges he denies, insists are needed for balance among branches of government. The embattled 73-year-old leader was rushed to a hospital near Tel Aviv late on Saturday after a heart monitor implanted a week earlier in what was described as a dehydration episode detected a temporary arrhythmia, his doctors said. Now fitted with a pacemaker, Netanyahu was due for discharge today. Poll results aired by national broadcaster Cannes found 46% of Israelis were opposed to the amendment versus 35% who were in favor and 19% who were undecided. Tens of thousands of Israelis calling for the proposed judicial overhaul to be scrapped line city streets in Jerusalem, carrying flags and beating drums under a scorching summer sun. Many pitched tents in a park near the Knesset. Netanyahu's coalition has been determined to push back against what it describes as overreach by a Supreme Court that says it has become too politically interventionist. Critics say today's amendment has been rushed through Parliament and will open the door to abuses of power by removing one of the few effective checks on the executive's authority in a country without a formal written constitution. Antony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, said that while Ukraine has recaptured half the territory that Russia initially seized in its invasion, Kiev faced a very hard fight to win back more. These are still relatively early days of the counter-offensive. It's tough, he said, adding, it will not play out over the next week or two. We're still looking, I think, at several months. Late last month, President Volodymyr Zelensky was quoted as saying that the counter-offensive's progress against Russian forces was slower than desired. Ukraine has captured some villages in the south and territory around the ruined city of Bakhmut in the east, but has not had a major breakthrough against heavily defended Russian lines. When asked if Ukraine will get US-made F-16 fighter jets, Blinken said he believed it would, and that the important focus is on making sure that when they do, they're properly trained, that they're able to maintain the planes and use them in a smart way. A coalition of 11 nations will start training Ukrainian pilots to fly the F-16 fighter jets in August in Denmark, and a training centre will be set up in Romania. Ukraine has long appealed for the Lockheed Martin-made F-16s, but US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said last month there was no final decision on Washington sending the aircraft. The United States has given Ukraine more than $41 billion in military aid since Russia invaded the sovereign nation in February 2022. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.